This time on Whatever We Want, we talk about
Light and Magic. This episode is jam-packed with newly released behind-the-scenes stories from your favorite ILM productions from the new documentary series that just dropped on Disney+. We talk everything from A New Hope to The Mandalorian. Enjoy! Welcome back to Whatever We Want, where we review content across all mediums of media, movies, TV shows, video games, and beyond to give you the most interesting behind-the-scenes insights, storytelling techniques, all that jazz, and more.
We cover everything from Disney, Marvel, Pixar, and this time, Industrial Light and Magic. Everything on screen has a purpose, and it's our point to point out why. Without further ado, let's jump into the show.
PreBanter, peanut butter. Daniel, happy birthday. This is your birthday episode.
It's not actually my birthday, but like this is coming
not
out
when we're
on my
recording
birthday.
this. Yeah, it comes out on your birthday.
It fits, you know, we're good.
Contrary to popular belief, we don't record and release on the same day.
That would be a lot for you, man. That'd be a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, for our audio listeners, Daniel's wearing a birthday hat, which if you turn it around is the hat we wore on our 3-year anniversary. And I've got some streamers in the background. Yeah, the 3's still there.
Okay.
It's pretty funny because like I bought these out in California when Dan was out here, and he managed to bring his home and like keep it in fine condition. Meanwhile, I tossed mine like the second we stopped recording.
It's not that hard to keep it in good condition. I just kind of folded it in and put it in my clothes, you know?
Gotcha. So it even smells like Daniel. We'll auction that off for a smelly Daniel birthday hat. Well, are you ready to jump into the main segment of the week?
Yeah, I was going to say, talk about getting in. Let's get into the main segment.
Okay. Wow, Daniel with the segue. All right. I was not prepared for that. But yeah, so as we said in the intro, we are talking. So a few weeks ago, Disney Plus dropped a 6-episode documentary series called Light and Magic on the history of ILM. And for those who don't know, ILM stands for.
I still need to watch it.
What?
I'm just kidding.
Bro.
No, you worried there for a second. You're like, what?
Because I literally just asked you before we started recording, like, you finished it, right? And you're like, yeah. I was like, you just lied to me. But ILM stands for Industrial Light and Magic, and it's the leading company in visual effects today. But so that's actually, that's a good point that you just, like, kind of joshed around with me. I feel like a big point of this was about the people all just, like, joshing around with each other,
dude.
you know?
That's one thing I really liked about like throughout each episode is that they always continue describing like interactions with each other like in a like familial way.
Yeah,
you know
they
what I mean?
really were like a family.
And they said several times too, like they were a family.
Yeah, it's seriously just overview again. I cannot say this enough. It is really freaking cool. Like if you like this podcast at all and like behind the scenes stuff, it's like a gold mine. Even if you don't want to watch it, then feel free to like keep listening. We'll just kind of give like our thoughts and like maybe some of the highlights, or if you have watched it, just want to hear our thoughts, we're here for that too. So yeah, what did you think like just overall? Because I was super hyped. Like what was your reaction to it?
Well, okay, my perspective on this is different than a lot of people.
How come?
Not only from somebody who does CGI and there's like animation and like all the work that they're talking about with the developments in CG, which I learned in college, and like everything that like went into getting like the development with the movies and then eventually moving into the game industry, which I didn't go over in the show, but like I understand that. I understand not only from that perspective as an artist, but also as somebody who's also starting my own business and trying to get my team of guys together, which Jake is also a part of. And there's a lot of times throughout where, you know, this past year where I've been questioning myself and like been saying like, am I doing the right thing? Am I making the right choices? Am I going about things the right way? And Jake and I talked about this last night. Even they didn't know back then. They're kind of just figuring it out as they went along. Yeah. So yeah, it was a really cool just like peek behind the curtain, and kind of stripping it back, especially to their early days, like the beginnings, which I want to talk about. I felt like the structure of this was kind of like they talked about the formation of ILM, like with Star Wars and Star Wars Episode 5, and then the next kind of like phase, if you would have to categorize it, is like how ILM kept improving and innovating even after Star Wars, and kind of getting involved with other films, starting with like George Lucas's friends, and then beyond to just like it is like the industry standard or like the main guy you go to. And then it shifted. The like final phase was like shifting from practical to visual effects and how that transition happened, and then into the modern day with like virtual production and like the modern stuff. And it was just really fascinating. Yeah. I feel like it was kind of a big jump at the end there.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Like it went from like Jurassic Park was like the big thing that they were talking about, and then it just like cramped everything from Jurassic Park until the present day into like the last episode. Which I was thinking I didn't mind that, because I mean just the way I've aged and was born. Like I came out I came out in. I'm thinking like movies. I'm thinking about movies like Jurassic Park came out in 1993. I came out of like my mom's womb in 1999. So like there wasn't that much gap there. Like that stuff that was rushed is stuff I had already seen and really researched because I was interested in it because I was alive during that time period. So
yeah.
I personally like didn't mind that they rushed it. Maybe it'd be cool like a follow-up series could like expand upon that stuff, or maybe just that stuff isn't as interesting because that's when like films and media started documenting everything, so a lot of those stories are already told, so they just focused on like the stuff that wasn't told.
I feel like a good follow-up would probably be, I'm pretty sure there's already a documentary on this though about Pixar. I feel like that'd be a good transition, like watching this first and then watching like the Pixar one, so you can then see how things move forward with animation and 3D and stuff like that.
I mean, yeah, they're a great. Hold on.
I know that there is a Pixar documentary like that goes in depth about like pretty much
a lot of making of stuff on Disney Plus too. But for our video viewer listeners, I talked about this a while ago on the podcast actually. But these two books are about like the history of Pixar, Creativity Inc. and the Pixar Touch. Seriously, if you're interested in like film and film history and how everything connects with like Disney and even like in the Light and Magic documentary I'll talk about, but Lucasfilm like owned Pixar for a while. It goes into it in this book as well from Pixar's perspective, so it's pretty interesting. Go away, books. We're not reading. I just checked my books. All right.
Just check and make sure they're okay. I'm sorry, books.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure. Yeah. So I mean, it kind of started with George Lucas founding ILM in the 1970s because it was crazy. Like he wanted to make Star Wars. He just made American Graffiti, right? That was like his.
Yeah, that was like his big like opening
first film.
Yeah.
Besides like his student film, which was like THX 1138.
Yeah, that had kind of a rough start with how things went, with how it was described in the documentary, but it was interesting to see the jump from that to American Graffiti, and then like him being like, "Hey, I can do this," you know?
Yeah, and then he had this idea for Star Wars, but there were no visual effects or special effects studios like back in the day. I think that's also an important distinction to make. I think a lot of people in film refer to visual effects as like digital and CGI, and then special effects a lot of the time are like the practical, like stop motion stuff we see in the early Star Wars stuff. So there was no special effects studios because visual effects wasn't even a thing, like CGI and stuff. But there were no special effects studios to do the amount of shots that like it's the quality that George Lucas wanted to. So he was just like, fine, I'll do it myself.
It was also just nice to see the insight to how things were done back in the day, like analog, just everything being analog. And I'm not just talking about how they did like the miniatures and did like the stop motion,
even like
animation.
filming itself and editing.
Editing. Editing was a big thing for me. I was like, holy crap, I didn't even think about that. Like,
I love that part of film history. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt what you were saying.
No, you're good. You're more ahead of this than me.
But that's like something that has fascinated me for years. Is like, again, because I came out in 1999.
Stop saying it like that.
When I like started appreciating films, I remember like the first Star Wars film I remember seeing in theaters was Empire Strikes Back in 2005. I was like 6, and not Empire Strikes Back, sorry, Revenge of the Sith in 2005. I was like 6, and that was filmed all digitally. And it's crazy because Attack of the Clones was the first feature film that was filmed entirely using digital new age cameras, and George Lucas and ILM, those like engineers and the computer people, pioneered that, and they created this whole new system because they talk about in the documentary series. It's really interesting, but like George Lucas was so frustrated with how films were made at the time because like it was so tedious, like to have physical film, like that's why they
physical
call it
film. You had to snip and then
you have to process it and like do the whole process of like developing it, and like it could go wrong, and when you edit it, you literally have to cut the film and splice it together with another piece. If you mess up, you can't like go back a frame. It was so difficult. So they literally like for the prequels, they pioneered this whole new way of filming and editing to make it all digital, to make it easier. And there was a lot of pushback, which is really interesting. There's still pushback to this day. A lot of film purists, it's just really interesting. Like even aside from the documentary, like I read in my film classes that like Christopher Nolan is a big proponent for filming, at least he was a couple years ago, filming for traditionally with traditional media and like film techniques. George Lucas, on the other hand, is like very proponent for like digital, and there are merits to both. Like film, it's really interesting. George Lucas, in his mind, I think my professor was kind of saying that like film came out in like the 1890s, I think was when people started doing films, and then it had 100 years to like develop that technology to make it as amazing, like for quality, for like contrast with light values as it could possibly be. And when digital came out, everyone that's like all these film purists are like, oh, this like
the crap. like it's not the same quality.
This isn't as good. Yeah. But
it was just the beginning.
Already, like, starting out, it was already leagues better than what film started out as. So you just have to spend time, like film got, to develop digital to be as good as that. So George Lucas is a real proponent for, let's develop this and make it as best as it can be. And I think we've been getting there now finally. But there's a lot of film purists still who are like, nah, film's like the way to go. And there's definitely merit to both. I just think that whole discussion is really interesting. And we got to see a little bit of peek behind the curtain in this.
Yeah, and another thing that was shown in the documentary too was like not only the filming of it and of it being made digital, but also the revolution of like adding in like the new projectors so that way it could be seen more clearly. You know, like the adoption of that.
Well, also just the digital like projectors in the day, like you literally fed the physical film reel into a projector to project it onto the movie theater screen. And when there was digital media, like you can't put that in just a regular projector. So they had to literally, I think they said ILM had to like invent a projector and ship it out to theaters so that they could show the movie, because they literally couldn't show it otherwise. That's just so interesting. And even the scaling of that is really interesting. They said like for the first film they did, when that was the case, it was like maybe a dozen or so theaters, and the next one it was like hundreds of theaters, and then it was like the rest across the country, and like that's now the standard. It's just so cool that like we lived through that, because that was like the early 2000s.
That's still something that like hits me, you know. It's just like it's
so modern. Like it's
we're used to it
still
now,
evolving. Yeah,
but like
we take it for granted. But like it's so cool.
I'm remembering back to when I was a kid, and it was just like we had TVs with color, obviously, because we're 2000s, 1998. But like the idea that films were still done mainly with like film, up until again, like when we were
people
like
still do films,
kids
with film today.
You know?
But yeah, I think Iron Man might have been even done partly with film. Like a lot of directors, like, and that's something they talk about in the documentary, how Jon Favreau, before Iron Man, was very skeptical of all visual effects. And it's crazy because now today he's like leading the charge with virtual production and like stagecraft and ILM. But like they had to sway him. And again, that was in that last episode that was a little rushed. I would have loved to see that explored more.
I love the talk that they had. And again, I learned about this in college, and Jake and I talked about this before. But like they put in the documentary to where he was going to critique about the one shot where it's a CGI
Iron
shot
Man suit,
but he thought it was the real suit.
He was pointing like, the real suit, like blah blah blah, and they were like, John, that's the
CG one. CGI and he's like,
suit.
oh,
and that's like the moment it clicked. He was like, oh,
all right, we're good.
This can work. Which is like, and again, think about that, like that Jon Favreau, like a renowned like filmmaker. That's 2008. Jurassic Park, when like everything really shifted, was 1993.
Oh, dude,
that's nearly 20 years still, where he's still in that old mindset and to have to get shifted over. I think that's a really fascinating conversation.
Imagine going back to the Jurassic Park thing, when they were going through and originally doing like the skinning and all the like stuff for the original T-Rex.
It was so tedious.
Well, I just love the way that they broke it down in the documentary, though. Like how it's literally everything that like I was taught when it comes to like making a character and doing like 3D animation.
Making that process,
but they were doing it. Yeah, they were doing. Yeah, like they were even they're pioneering it.
That's the same thing with just even before that with Ed Catmull. I read that in that book I just threw over there. And it was cool to see the visual in the documentary they talk about, but that animation that he did with his hand, that was like revolutionary at the time. And the way he did it was like he put like dots on his hand to like track the position and then inputted that into the computer. That's another thing I really want to talk about is, again, during that I went all over the place. I was going to plan on going over this in order, but like there's just so many cool moments.
We're just picking our favorite parts and we're just going with it. Honestly, it's a good series, and if anybody really wants to check it out and like get full detail, we can get into it. But Jake and I are like, we're geeking out here.
Yeah. So with Jurassic Park, it was I felt really bad for again, we were talking earlier how like this was like a really fun environment. I felt bad for that guy that was like the stop motion guy that was supposed to, like, they said Jurassic Park was supposed to be like his magnum opus or whatever, like his
and then he didn't get the chance to because it was
stop motion
replaced.
Guy. But then like literally like the plan, it's crazy. The plan for Jurassic Park was never to do like a CGI dinosaur. The plan was to do stop motion the whole time, and this guy that had been like the king of stop motion at ILM all the years, like did the tauntauns and everything back in the day. He was like gonna do this amazing film. It was gonna be like his best film. And then these two kind of younger guys, they were working in the newly formed visual effects studio, because the visual effects were still being used, but they were used for like smaller shots. Like there was a shot in like James Cameron's Abyss where it was like the water creature. Like that was pretty revolutionary, but it was just like
I
one
say
shot.
It's smaller, it's just earlier in that case.
Yeah. So they were kind of working, and they heard about this dinosaur movie, and they were like, "What if we tried doing it?" Like I think we are at the point where we can do this with the technology. So they like developed, like Daniel said, all the processes of how to do this, because there was no like YouTube tutorial or standard, and they just grinded like in their free time for like months. It took like months to just get like one test shot of the T-Rex, and they showed it. I think they said like Steven Spielberg, who was directing it, and Kathleen Kennedy came down from the execs wherever they were at and to check in on the progress, and they saw like this T-Rex shot, and they tried to,
because the one guy had it on loop in the background, and then that caught their eye, and they're like, oh, how's that? It wasn't the full T-Rex, it was just the bones, but still.
Right.
Like,
I'm thinking about like the main screening too. They talked about how it was really interesting. They tried to do like all the toughest situations, like they put it in broad daylight.
Yeah,
like
broad daylight, directly coming at you.
Different rough terrain. Yeah,
on the ground.
Sunlight. Yeah. And like it worked, and that like shifted everything. Like they changed from doing stop motion to CGI. But my point I was trying to make with that, so that was a long-winded point. This is a long-winded point, but I think it's cool that they kept that guy on, the guy that had all the experience from the Tauntauns, like doing stop motion.
Because he knows how things move.
Yes, because he was like led the animation team, and they built like this rig of like a dinosaur that like they could pose, and then the computer would capture that movement, so they could translate the physical performance of the stop motion and combine it with the like higher tech visual effects and like smooth out some of the imperfections that like were not intended. So they took basically the best of the stop motion, the best of the visual effects, and combined them to make like something greater than the sum of its parts. Just awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I also love the problems. Well, two things here. One, I love when they're doing the thing where they're trying to figure out how to get the right feel for the dinosaurs. So they had that point where they had like the whole herd, and they're like jumping over to get like the reference. Because the animators do
the people.
Animators
the
animators
like went out to the parking lot and like were jumping in the parking lot. Is that what you're talking about?
The one guy broke his arm, and you can no longer be.
That was the name of the episode, like no more pretending to be dinosaurs. I love also how those like all those titles like all fit completely with like each episode in like multiple subtext. Like that was like a literal thing they said, and also they transitioned from out of practical pretty much into the new age of visual effects.
You said the thing.
Yeah, but like so it's out of Sorry,
but here's the thing. I want to make this point as well. Like animators all the time do reference of themselves. Doing whatever that's the thing though. Like this guy went out there and they did that.
What if they had a dinosaur like break his arm or like fall over and they use that exact thing as reference? Yeah, maybe in the background or something. We should like watch Jurassic Park and like figure that out.
Oh man, but no, like it's just funny to see like these are kind of like the origins of that for like 3D animation, like of animators getting reference, so that way they can do that. Like I'm literally about to do that for our intern, so that way he can do animation for one of the characters, right? So I'm literally going to be doing like all like the exaggerated like whoa and like taking damage and like me like falling on the ground.
If you need any reference, let me know, because I really would just like feel myself doing stuff and like I don't know. Yeah, let me know if you need help with that.
There, okay.
Yeah. Maybe there's like a dance scene or something. You got me.
You know how like in Lego Star Wars, is like if you walk slow. I'm talking about like the original ones. You'll do like a more exaggerated like a.
Yeah. I'll do that.
I should have you do those.
All right, I'll do that. All right, back.
So the second thing, I forget. I had a point I wanted to make. All the things so good.
And everything's so, dude. I know. Literally, I have so many pages of notes that are just like me geeking out about everything. But all right, I mean, we talked a lot about Jurassic Park and kind of the modern stuff. Do you want to take it back to like some of the earlier stuff, which is basically what a lot of the documentary is about?
Yeah. So I love talking about some of the earlier stuff too when it comes to the practical side, because it's
awesome. They're just figuring stuff out.
I love it.
There was no standard, and they just
you just go.
Yeah, like they made a big point in the first and second episode that like they didn't know what they couldn't do, so they just figured everything out. Like they developed like a motion controlled camera. Like the guy developed it in, I think the current head of visual effects, like John Knoll, who developed Photoshop and is at ILM now. He they talk about him and how he got involved with ILM, but he like built a freaking motion capture rig just in his college dorm, just cause.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think that's awesome. But even before that, they developed a motion control camera to do all these like crazy shots where they're like, they have, especially in episode 5, like the Millennium Falcon going, and then asteroids going. To make everything look like it's cohesive in one image, they have to get the exact same camera angle, but film every element differently. And it was cool. I think the techniques like they used, sometimes they wouldn't even move the camera, they just move the elements in the same way, or like they move the camera one way, but also move the elements. It's just so cool.
Not to mention the way that they had to process that film, that because again, back in the day it was all analog, so like
they had to keep re-exposing it.
Well, not even but not even that. Like they designed the whole new machine.
Right,
have
to push
properly.
them together, yeah.
So
which
like
is such an easy click of a button in After Effects now. Yeah. It's crazy.
It's just funny to think about how much.
Dude,
it's just been revolutionized in our lifetime.
Yeah,
and before our lifetime.
Yeah, it's also wild
in a lifetime.
Yeah, it's also so wild to me that like ILM disbanded after Star Wars came out. Because, like, they had to go back to their real jobs because there was no other, like, film that needed that amount of visual effects. Because it was Star Wars. Like, that was it. Like, there wasn't, like, all right, when Star Wars came out, like, everything, like, the next day they were filming something new. Like, they didn't even know if it was going to work. And then it worked. And then, like, they went back to, like, doing jobs at commercials or whatever they were doing. And then when George Lucas was ready for Episode 5, they came back and like, had to reform ILM, which is just wild.
It's just crazy.
I do like then that once Episode 5 was over, like George Lucas, it was just his company and he wasn't ready to start filming Episode 6. He needed to go write the story and figure it out. So he like rented out the studio to like start out with like his friends, like Steven Spielberg. And that's when we got Indiana Jones.
I
then
love
like
that mindset too. Because it's just like, again, like with what I'm like, with what I'm trying to do, right? I'm trying to keep the family together. You know, I want to find a way to keep the guys together. Like, that's the way to do it. You know, you're able to keep your guys busy, but also keep them in practice and keep them doing what they want to do. And it just worked out perfectly.
And as they were working on other films, they developed like new techniques and processes that work for other films, which we see. Like, it's cool. Like, I have a list here of like all the films they like, these amazing, like the films you think of like classics. They like made them possible. Like I said, Indiana Jones. It was cool. I loved the story behind that too. Just like Spielberg wanted to do a James Bond film, but was never given like the reins to a James Bond film. So George Lucas had this
George was like, I got something for
idea
you.
for like a James Bond type archaeologist kind of thing, which is cool. And then E.T. and then like ILM, the word kind of spread that like these guys are good at visual effects. So like all these new wave of films with like crazy visuals started popping up, like Terminator and Terminator 2 with like the Liquid Man, Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, Forrest Gump, The Abyss, like we said, James Cameron. It's just awesome. And I loved in the documentary series, it like takes a little bit of time like on each of those films to talk about like a new element or problem that they had to overcome. They always push the envelope, which is awesome.
Yeah, just fundamentally, like they were always problem solving. And like they said themselves, they're always playing because that's kind of like what you have to do to solve these problems.
Yeah.
And it's just a fun environment to be in. I'm blessed to be able to be like a creator and do what I do, but just like seeing again like the OGs in a way do it. It's just it's cool to see.
Yeah, dude, this really re-inspired me to just get excited about like film and stuff again, and just like I want to find that like group of people that like you can, because film is about like collaborating, and I really want to find like a group of people that like I can collaborate with and like make cool stuff with, and just enjoy going to work like they seemed like they were. But yeah, sorry. I had a quote I came up with. I was pretty proud of. ILM, if you want to trademark this, you can just reach out to me on the podcast, TikTok or whatever. So
I feel like
again,
you're hyping this up, and it's just
I know.
like, butt cheeks.
No.
Like
it was so it was again. I'm thinking about all of them, like the like kind of montage they go through of like all the films they keep like pushing the envelope and like doing bigger and better things. And I thought, what was impossible became the standard. And I think that's a pretty decent quote.
Okay,
yeah,
that's pretty inspirational. That's good.
Yeah, at ILM, trademarking that, so you can reach out to my people, and I mean me,
my people.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were some of your favorite parts out of this, like the entirety of it? Okay, because we talked kind of generally about like the beginning with some of the pre-stuff, a lot of the CGI stuff. What were your favorite parts?
There was a quote from George Lucas I actually did write down that I really liked, just because just his mindset. I was like, wow, I really connect with that because I want to get into that spot. But he was talking about like his early days in episode 2 of the docu-series, episode 2 of the docu-series, not episode 2 of Star Wars. But he was talking about how his dad wanted him to be working in a like paper stationery company. He said, I'll never work at a job where I have to do the same thing over and over again every day. And I loved that because I just was like, I freaking feel that. Just that, no, seriously, just that quote. Like, I really like that because I think that's a big reason I got into film. I was like, I don't see myself at a 9 to 5 every day, like in an office doing nothing. So I really wanted to get out of that. Yeah. Hold on, I did have some other stuff I wanted to talk about. Oh, you said you liked his hair, right? Their hair.
Oh man, you got me thinking about getting a beard or something. Get some beard oils. I don't know what it is. I just
so when you're watching, you like the hair,
yeah,
of like all people in the 70s. It was like kind of untamed.
I guess I haven't really thought about that or seen anything from like the 70s in a while. So if it's not on top of your mind, don't think about it. But like every time I see like guys from the 70s, they always
with
have
long
a mane
hair.
And I'm just like, man, I need to get me one of those.
Well, speaking of untamed hair.
Oh, I know where this is going.
Boosh! All right, we're here. So, support for the What Everyone podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code WWWPOD at manscaped.com. If my math is correct, that's about 12 million balls. First off, the Lawnmower 4.0. This trimmer is the future of grooming, and dare I say, the greatest ball trimmer ever. It's waterproof, skin-safe technology to reduce nicks. It eliminates waste on the bathroom floor. It's really just a quality product.
It makes it an easy time. It makes it a really easy time.
All right, have you had any past trauma with not Manscaped products?
It took forever before. That's the thing.
And Manscaped just
you
helped
had to be careful with it. But and you still have to be careful with it with the
you should be careful with anything around that area. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like it reduces accidents, which is great.
Yeah, it reduces accidents, makes things go by a lot easier. Also, I was laughing because I heard the tiny little buzz.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't expecting that in the mic.
So get 20% off and free shipping with the code WWWPOD at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code WWWPOD. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. I believe there's 1 week left, like a little over a week and like 2 days that this code is valid, so make sure to use that. Back to the show. Boosh! All right, we're back. Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt your hair talk.
No, that was a good transition. I kind of like that.
Thank you.
If there's any time to talk about your mane and your man
That's when you're
handling
talking about
gear.
Sweaty men in the 70s making Star Wars.
But also something else that was funny to think about too, like how hot it was when they're talking about like making Star Wars and like how they had the hot tub.
Yeah.
Or not even the hot tub, it was just a tub and
a slip and slide.
Yeah, from the freaking army supply.
They've described it as like a fraternity house, but like with people making films, like that just sounds awesome. Wait, it was from an army supply, I think. Oh yeah, so it was like the slip and slide.
It was emergency slide thing from a plane.
That's awesome.
It was just like surplus parts.
How do we get our hands on one of those? Is what I'm wondering.
How much does that even cost?
Let me look it up. What is it? There's a cargo hold plane emergency water landing, $40,000. Wait, this one says, I don't know if this is legit, but it says $30 plus $10 shipping. I don't know. This looks all sketchy on eBay, Daniel.
I feel like it would be nice because then again, you could just pop it like they did, and then it's good.
Yeah, maybe we should befriend some pilots. If there's any pilots on that are fans and you want to slip and slide with us, reach out to my people again. But yeah, again, just some stuff that I liked. I need to look through my list. What are some things that you really liked about it?
So I loved, for when it came to the models and stuff like that, especially for when it came to things like the ATs, like how they had to engineer certain parts of it so that way it would, I'm going to call it auto animate. You know what I mean? So like they move the legs and then it would auto move some of the other parts, like in the like in the circle, stuff like that.
The attention to detail.
Yeah. So that's such a smart way to do it. That way, like, you don't have to go through and animate by hand each bit. If you're doing stop motion like that, that'd be so tedious. But now, if you're able to just get things that work automatically, slightly. That's the thing. It's about optimizing.
Anything counts. Yeah, I freaking just sorry to that point. I agree. I completely agree that I love just like the attention to detail in all the models they make, like the artsmanship and craftsmanship, just in that whole studio was, I mean, something to behold. Like I feel like the energy in there is probably just like magic. Ho ho ho. But like the thing that sticks out to me is like they were doing the trench run, I think, and they were putting like little lights for windows along it, and then like the producer came in and was like, "Oh, this is great, but like we have to reduce the scale by 50%." So they had to take off like the hundreds of little LEDs or whatever they put on and reapply them. It
was reflective tape, so that way it would reflect the light back
on
from
the camera. Yeah, just that is cool.
But yeah, that's just funny to think about. Like, you put so much time in, and you're like,
yeah,
fine.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, it paid off. Wait, they should release the bigger window cut. It's just the regular Star Wars, but the trench run has slightly larger windows. And like all the scenes inside of like the Death Star just have like twice the size of windows. So like it's like
so everyone's super small.
Yeah. It's like the menacing shot of like Darth Vader like looking out of like the Death Star, like Star Destroyer, but they have like giant windows.
I could see that. No, I could see that being like a Spaceballs thing, to where it'd be like, not just the windows are bigger, but like the whole room's bigger, you know? So then you have like Lord Helmet like climbing up on the ledge, trying to like look out the window or something like that. I feel like that'd be a good gag there. But no, what else? When they had to do the warp of the Falcon.
Oh yeah, they just
took a picture, like a Polaroid picture of it.
Image, and just like moved it away.
Yeah.
Like they literally just took like again, these little tricks. They took like a literal like photograph, like Polaroid, whatever, of the model of the Millennium Falcon, because they didn't have a model that was small enough or that could get small enough quickly enough on a rig. So they took a model and then they transitioned the shot of the model moving away as they like sped off into hyperspace with like a picture, and then just moved the picture really far away. And he said that like, that's a moment that just gets like cheers all the time. Like it's that's so funny that's what that is. Oh man,
it's just the ingenuity that goes into how they're into the problem solving, and how do you figure out. Like he said it in the documentary, what works and then also what's cheap, you know? What's going to save you a lot. And that cheapness in that sense could work not only with money, but also time. That saved that whole method. That's true. Instead of them like going through making a whole new model that would like work with the camera and that scale, that saved them so much time just by doing it that way. So that's a huge part of the problem solving process. And I just loved how that's kind of like a core thing out of this series as well, where they're just talking about like, here's how we solve this. Here's how we solve this. Yeah. Then we wanted to do this. So then we were thinking about how the hell do we do that?
And it wasn't always smooth sailing. Like I did like how they mentioned that like George Lucas and the head of Ilum that eventually like kind of got let go and not brought back for episode 5. Like they kind of butted heads. It's unfortunate, but like it's the reality of just like life. Like even though like, they remember fondly all those memories, there were like tough times back then, and like George Lucas didn't like a lot of the shots. A lot of them had to get redone. George Lucas was upset that when he came back, like only 2 shots were done because they spent so much time just setting up the systems that they needed to like film everything. Yeah, but they had a positive tone on everything, which was good.
Yeah, but like also like to give perspective, like thinking about from like George's perspective, right? Like he's out in London and Tunisia and all that doing like the actual filming with like the crew and getting all the slates and stuff like that. He had the ILM team back on the States side.
He had no idea what was happening.
with literally half the budget. When he got back doing all, like not all, but most of the filming.
Was it half the budget, or was it half the budget for visual effects? I thought it was like $2 million or something like that.
Yeah, it was $2 million. They went through $1 million.
Oh, okay.
Dang. Yeah, so by the time they got back, they were through $1 million.
Which is also just chump change today. Like $1 million in film? Well, that's crazy.
Again, George said it himself that like wouldn't get you a shot, you know?
Yeah.
It's just funny. It's just funny because it's just like he gets back and just imagine like half your budget's gone.
For 2 shots.
Out of the 400 that you need.
That is, yeah, I mean, that would be stressful. I'm glad they persevered. And just like imagine today, we wouldn't be here today probably. I don't know what we'd be doing.
Something else that I love too, with just whole process, how things used to be done. The matte paintings. I love me some matte paintings that are very cool. Well done.
So matte painting, for people that don't know, is like you paint like a background that doesn't move at all. It's like a very detailed like Cloud City, or like the pit below Alec Guinness in the Death Star when he's shutting down the reactor. It's like something that needs detail, but you can't necessarily like make it or like build it. And obviously there's no visual effects, so you can't like just CGI it later. Like you expose like part of the frame to like the actor and stuff, and then like cover the rest of it in like black. Will later be the matte painting, and you film again with the matte painting where the black was, and like reverse it, and then, so that the other part's black, and then you combine them together. Yeah, and it's just again really cool. I didn't even know that Ralph McQuarrie worked on some of the matte paintings. Like that was cool to learn about. Like he couldn't do clouds apparently.
Oh, I knew about that, but I didn't know about the cloud thing. I thought that was funny. Because apparently he couldn't do clouds. Like he said, the other artists, they were saying like, oh, it looks like cauliflower, you know? So like, I'll handle clouds, you know? It's all good.
Yeah.
It's just funny it's funny how artists have moments like that too, to where they criticize each other, but they don't want to like hurt each other's feelings and stuff like that.
Ralph freaking McQuarrie, so
yeah, different people have different ways of figuring out, hey, how do we optimize this to get to be the best? And I just love it when people are able to like work together in ways and come up with solutions like that to where everyone's able to be like, this looks awesome, this looks epic.
Yeah, and it was just cool. Again, it felt like a very like people were working on this because they were passionate about it. Because like, the map painter. That the main map painter, not Ralph McQuarrie, but the other guy, like he said he was like the youngest guy at his day job. Like he worked all day like at Disney.
Yeah, because he was a Disney
map painter. And then like at night he would come to ILM and he was like one of the oldest guys there because a lot of people were just like young, early 20s, like getting started in life, like right out of college or school or just leaving home because they had no responsibilities. So they could just dedicate their entire existence to ILM. They had no families to take care of. Like it's just like a perfect storm.
Like they said, they practically lived there at ILM, you know? Yeah. All the guys were just there.
I did like, speaking of just like the people in their young 20s that are now like these legends of like creating visual effects. I really liked one thing I found fascinating about this whole documentary series was like in the first episode when they're talking about all these founders, I loved learning just about them and like the films that inspired them, like as they grew up. I thought it was really cool. It kind of gave me a lot of stuff to add to my watch list. Like they referenced King Kong a lot with like early stop motion and like how crazy that was. And, like he picked up the actress. They talked about Jason the Argonauts, which is, I actually learned about that from one of my film classes and Corridor Crew. But it's like that stop motion skeleton one where they're like battling real, it like came out in 1963, which is crazy that like they were able to combine those. It's also cool that like these guys and girls are like inspired by these really cool movies and now they've seriously like inspired the next generation with like their movies. Like so many people cite Star Wars and the effects from ILM on other projects is like the thing that got them into the movies. So I think that's just a really, really cool full circle moment.
It's also just funny to think generationally too, because like we are inspired, like you and I specifically are inspired by like Star Wars, by all the films that they were talking about in this documentary, but then for them that's what they were inspired by, you know? Like geez.
This just gets me eager to like make movies and just get out there and do stuff. I don't know.
We should do it, Jake.
Yeah.
Well, I'm already doing it, but for games. So you need to do it.
We'll collaborate. We'll make a movie.
Holy crap, we've been talking for 41 minutes. It's only felt like 10.
I know, because this is exciting stuff.
This is fun stuff to talk about.
Let's talk about a little bit about virtual production and kind of the future, because we kind of briefly talked about Jurassic Park, but that stuff.
It's very interesting because we're at the end talking about like the Mandalorian and the volume, and they showed it. They were working in Unreal Engine and stuff. I'm just like, that's
yeah. I just want to quickly say that virtual production is kind of a new age of filmmaking where like you take a camera and point it like at a video screen kind of thing, or like at least on the stagecraft. Not even necessarily pointing at a video screen, but like you're just taking a virtual camera and filming actors that are sometimes you can do like motion capture or like what they did for Avatar, and like there's a digital camera translating all this information to like Unreal Engine where they like build an environment out, or it's like the volume where like you're pointing the camera at like an LED screen with an actor, so the actor's there but like the environment behind them is digital, like a screen, a flat 2D plane, but it's in this program called Unreal Engine where you can, like Daniel said, it's like a game engine that he uses a lot where they build environments. And so like the perspective when you move the camera like shifts, so like things closer to you they move faster than the stuff like in the background moves, kind of thing, like when you shift the camera around. So like the perspective is always perfect
and depth and all that. So, and that's what makes it really nice, because instead of now having to build up all these physical sets, right, you can just go, even before you even start 3D modeling, you can go and do 3D scans of like, say, like cliffs and stuff like that, bring those into Unreal Engine.
Like it brings back model making. That's one thing I love about it, is that like we went to the extreme with green screen where like actors, especially in the prequels, were like going around with like nothing to base things off of, and we're kind of finding like a good medium, like good middle, I feel like, where there are a lot of real elements and then there's a lot of digital elements, but some of those digital elements are like scanned, like for the Mandalorian, his Razor Crest ship, they made a model of that and used the model for some shots, but they also scanned the model and used it and then brought it in for CG. With CGI. I just think that stuff is really cool. I do worry though that people are going to use it as a crutch and use it too much when it's not needed. Like I feel like Andor is a series that's about to come out, and it is not using the volume. A lot of people were like, wow, this trailer looks like really good, like really raw and real. I feel like The Mandalorian used the volume very effectively in like virtual production and everything. But I think because everyone saw that, it's kind of going back to like over-reliance on CGI. I don't want to over-rely on virtual production, and just kind of, because we can doesn't mean you should. Like don't use it just like a crappy job doing it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's as stepping stones, right? So the volume in itself is obviously a great technology. It's also, people say this all the time, you're kind of flipping the production pipeline because you're having all the stuff that would be in post now in front, right? Which makes it, again, easier, like what we've been saying, for literally the people there to, whether you're a director or just actors in the scene, to visualize what's going on.
Yeah.
But with that said, I understand what you're saying, where it shouldn't be relied on too much, but that's not the problem. It's, how does this go into the next thing, right? What is going to be the next thing after that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm really curious.
And what problems need to be solved to get into that? Here's what I think the next thing is going to be. It's practically going to be a conversion of XR, right? Which is kind of what it is already with the volume. It's kind of there.
Is that like augmented reality? Or is that like, what is that?
Yeah, so there's VR, which is virtual reality. You have AR, which is augmented reality. And XR is really just a kind of broad term that could mean anything from AR to VR.
Oh, okay.
So in this case, what I mean specifically is if you're on set and you want to have like glasses on, so you can literally be in the physical like 3D space, that's going to be the next step where you have the option of either going like physically in reality or in the actual set. And I'm not talking about having the volume to where you're limited to one perspective.
It could be just anything you're saying?
It could be any perspective. Yeah, like you're actually in that space.
Kind of like a holodeck almost from like Star Trek, sort of.
Kind of, yeah, exactly. That's literally what it would become. So it would be something to where if you're a director, right, and you want to like just literally look around the scene and be like, okay, where's the best perspective and angle on this? You can do that. But the beauty of this is at the same time, because it's digital, if you're sitting in an outside seat or something like that, you can change your lighting, you can change the time of day, you can change your atmospherics, you can do all that and have it look real. Yeah, so that's the next stage.
It's interesting because like I feel like virtual production is so early, like it's tough to know a lot of the behind the scenes, like what the problems and limitations of virtual production are, and I think people are still figuring it out. So I think once it's been established for a little bit and like we figure out what those limitations are, then the next thing will start to get
gonna
like,
be easier to figure out what the problems are to solve.
But also just I just want to quickly make a point about comparing like CGI versus like overuse of virtual production, like the volume and stuff. Like I feel like the volume is used a lot, and again, I loved it in Mandalorian. It was used very effectively. I think we might see if we're not careful, like a repeat of CGI almost. Like because remember, like Jurassic Park 1993, those dinosaurs looked freaking incredible, and that was 1993. Then in like everyone started using CGI, and I think people were rushed to do like a lot of shots, and they couldn't take as much care and attention on it. So like there's a lot of visual effects, especially like from the early 2000s to the mid-teens, that like aren't
that
great.
Don't hold up.
Yeah. So I think
maybe
I see
what you're saying with that.
That if we don't use virtual production like effectively, like everyone just starts using it just cause, and don't do the proper techniques that were like established just to do it just because they can in like rush time, then I'm worried like we might get some like shoddy virtual production things. Well, I think it's just potential. It's
a potential, but here's the problem with that argument. You're setting up a situation to where it's like, it's again, the director, the team doesn't have enough time. They're trying to do things quick, whatever. They're short on money, whatever it may be. That's situational to the artist on the art team. It doesn't matter what techniques you use at that point, technically. If you're short on time, you're going to have something that looks like shit.
Right. So I think it's just definitely going to happen, though.
Yeah.
I had a good like kind of TTTT that like pertains to this, so I didn't want to just put it in TTTT. This is kind of the TTTT of the week.
Let me guess it.
Okay.
Did you know that there's a Terminator in Jurassic Park?
No, that's not it. But can you go ahead and elaborate?
Yeah, so when they were going through and doing this dinosaur CGI for Jurassic Park, they actually had to come up with that one shot where the guy's on the toilet, like what are they going to use for his body and his legs. So because they already did Terminator, they just took the body, put some clothes on
that element,
and then had the T-Rex eat that old element.
Dang. Yeah. That's pretty interesting. I like that. So I guess Terminator loses to T-Rex, in case anyone was wondering.
Canonically, yeah.
Yeah. But no, my TTTT was that Joe Johnston, one of the designers, the one that made the Millennium Falcon in one night, wanted to quit filmmaking. Like he wanted to quit after the stress and pressure of working on like a few films, working at ILM after the initial excitement of like doing this new innovative thing wore off. And he told George Lucas that he was going to retire from special effects. He was going to spend some time traveling for a few years. But George Lucas asked him if he wanted to go to film school. And George Lucas himself like put him...
This is such a flip.
Yeah, for real. And then he said, yeah. And George Lucas literally put him through film school. And then Joe Johnston went on to direct Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. He went on to direct like amazing films like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, The Rocketeer, Jumanji, Jurassic Park 3, and even Captain America 1. So like, thank you, George Lucas, for all those films and Joe Johnston. That's just crazy. That those almost didn't happen, like just because of that decision.
So something else that I loved out of this series was just the show of generosity that came from the team and like how they helped each other out. Because again, at the end of the day, they're all just trying to create the most amazing thing that they could. And after a while, after it hit so many things, they again with them being a family, it was how can we help each other just beyond what we're trying to accomplish here and now. And I feel like especially George began to like really have that like wider perspective. Not only when he saw the problems that were going on with the production pipeline, but like as he began interacting with people and his team and understanding like what problems were they facing and how can he make things better for them as well. And that's just one example that like shows that very well. Like, hey, I don't want to lose you. I know you still have a passion for this. What can I provide for you? And then that like this just you can't top that, you know? This is great.
I think that's a good point to end on. Definitely check it out if you guys want to. We're excited to talk about it. We never like covered like a documentary series before, like nonfiction, so let us know how it did. I don't know. I thought this was a really good documentary series. There's a lot of, if you're also interested and if you have watched Light and Magic, there's a lot of like making of documentaries of like all the Marvel projects and all the like recent Star Wars shows that is also on Disney Plus. I think it's called like Marvel's Assembled, and then like I forget what it's called for Mandalorian, like Star Wars Gallery or something like that. So yeah, check those out. You ready for the next segment, or do you have any last minute thoughts? Sorry, before we jump into the next segment.
I mean, only other thing I could think of is that technically I've been doing my own prop making.
Daniel has a lightsaber in his hand for
so I have my lightsaber.
Daniel neglects our audio listeners all the time. I've noticed.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, audio listeners.
All right, you ready for patron shout-outs?
Yeah, hit me with them.
Cue the Stars music. Boosh. We got patron Lori, Frank, Rick, Lisa, Evan, Tony. Thank you so much for pledging the tier. Thank you to the shout out. If you'd like to support us over here on Patreon, link is down in the description. You get the audio episode early and special benefits like a role in our Discord, cool perks, a lot of jazz, and more. All right, you ready for the next segment? Cool comments.
Yes, what do we get this time?
So, on our episode from last week where we said we fixed the DC universe for Warner Brothers, Josh McIntyre said, all I want from upcoming DC universe is a lead up to Young Justice or Teen Titans Go series or movies, live action. That'd be cool.
That's pretty solid.
If they did that effectively.
That's pretty solid.
Yeah. So, we will have to wait and see with this new 10-year plan. Yeah. All right. Ready for the introduction?
Yeah, tell me when.
When?
We just talked about whatever we want to talk about, and now we're done. Blah.
Thank you so much for listening. We seriously really do appreciate it. Happy birthday to Daniel again. Yeah, next episode, we are staying in the vein of Star Wars, and we kind of have a fun pitch practice episode. So subscribe, follow, so you do not miss that. Goodbye.
Goodbye.